Hi, I'm Andy Marcus. I'm the Babbling Gourmet. I'm a caterer, I'm a foodie, and I'm a private chef on a farm between Renfrew and Douglas in the beautiful Ottawa Valley. And today I'm so excited to show you how to make these delicious dishes using locally produced ingredients, including my favorite honey, Farmer's Daughter's honey, including lamb from the incredible Pinnacle Haven Farm in Renfrew, just around the corner from us, locally harvested fresh venison in a deglazed sauce, and honey basted butter rosemary carrots, and an easy peasy barbecue sauce. But first, let's get started. So today I'm super excited to show you guys how to make a delicious homemade barbecue sauce. You don't have to go to the store to buy it. There's no preservatives, super easy, and you can tweak it according to your flavor profile. If you want things a little spicy, I'll show you how you can do that. If you want things a little more garlicky, I'll show you how to do that. So the base is always ketchup, okay? It doesn't matter what kind you get. It can be no name, it can be a name brand. I'm not really gonna measure, I'll just show you you know, how I make my barbecue sauce, easy peasy. This is probably about maybe 1/3 of a cup right here. We're gonna add in some Dijon mustard. You can also use a yellow mustard, but I find that the Dijon was a little bit thicker and it's not as tangy. It's just got a more earthy taste to it. So I'm gonna say maybe about 1.5 tablespoons added to the ketchup. I love a granulated garlic that I get from Costco. The Kirkland brand is super high quality, very flavorful, and brings out a very authentic taste of garlic in all the dishes that I cook. So I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit, shall we say a couple of teaspoons maybe? Or a little more, maybe 1 tablespoon. So now we're gonna add some salt and pepper. You can use pepper out of a shaker, or you can grind your own. Again, I love the Kirkland brand, always high quality products, and some salt. Take it easy on the salt because you really want to have a sticky, sort of sweet barbecue sauce, and sometimes if you put too much salt in it, it takes away from the sweetness. So I'm using Farmer's Daughter's honey here. This is one of their spring versions. I'm going to drizzle, honey's hard to work with sometimes. Of course, you can always use your little honey scoop, but I like to pour it in. So we're gonna pour in probably about another 1/4 of a cup or more. Well, let's go for 1/2 cup this time in this particular recipe. Okay, so we're just gonna whisk all these ingredients together. And as you can see, it's got a beautiful color to it, little speckles of pepper, which we like to see. And that's your basic, simple, easy peasy barbecue sauce. You can use this on chicken, you can use it on ribs. If you wanted to use it on beef, you can also do that. And I would recommend adding maybe a couple teaspoons of steak spice to the mix. Now, if you want to make this a little bit more interesting, if you have a fiery palate, you can add a little splash of chili flakes. And I like to do this as well. A little bit of ginger. Another little shake. We don't measure around here at the Babbling Gourmet, by the way, in case you're wondering. And this is usually what I do at the very end. I drizzle just a little bit of soya sauce in there, makes it a little less thick, and adds just a little bit of umami, which is kind of a little bit of a tang. Okay, so this is a basic, easy, honey-based barbecue sauce using locally made honey that you can use on pork, beef, and chicken. You can even use it on barbecue shrimp, actually, and meatloaf. That's another thing you can use it on. Possibilities are endless. So another one of my favorite recipes is using locally sourced fresh venison. Super popular around here in the country. Something that people have on hand, usually in their freezer after the hunting season. And it's a very lean meat, so we have to marinate it to tenderize it a little bit and really infuse it with sweetness, saltiness, so that when it cooks and sits, all of those flavors will just get absorbed into the meat, and instead of being what some might consider gamey, kind of reduces that a little bit. So it's a super easy marinade. Here we have a fresh venison steak. What we're going to do, which is always a super important part of any marinade, is soy sauce. So we're just gonna drizzle a little bit of soy sauce on top, okay? I like to use, again, granulated garlic. My favorite brand is Kirkland. It's probably one of the best I've ever found. So we're just gonna sprinkle that on lightly. Who doesn't like garlic, right? We're gonna add in a little bit of ginger on top, just a pinch. That helps bring out all the tasty parts of the meat. And pepper. Put that on top. And of course, the most important part of this is honey. So we're gonna drizzle on Farmer's Daughter's honey. It's a honey that I use for all of my cooking and all of my dishes. We're just gonna spread that around like that. And there we go. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna rub that into the meat. You can use your hands, you can use a spatula, you can use a spoon, whatever you want. Of course, I've got sanitized hands here, so I'm just gonna flip it over. Get that in there, mix it all together, and let that sit. Now, ideally, you wanna put this into the fridge, minimum a day, okay? I like to have it marinate for maybe 2 days. The longer the better, to be honest with you. And this is gonna be flash fried. Because the meat is so lean, if you cook it longer than just a flash and you intend on serving it beyond medium rare, it's gonna be a little bit tough and rubbery. So we don't want that. We've got this perfect little piece of meat here. Actually, it's not a little piece of meat, it's a big piece of meat. So we wanna make sure that we treat it super well and that it comes out tasting as good as it can. So you can wrap this in saran wrap or put it in a Ziploc bag if you want. I find sometimes putting it in a Ziploc bag in the fridge saves on space and it gives you an opportunity to go in there and smoosh it around. So we just happen to have a venison steak that has been marinating in the fridge for 2 days in the same solution. I let quite a bit of the air out, and over the past couple of days I've been sort of squeezing it, kind of massage some of that, most of that marinade into the meat and get it as infused as possible. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take that meat out of the Ziploc bag, and as you can see, it's gotten a little bit darker. All that soy sauce and honey is in there. It's gonna be so tasty. We're gonna pull it out of the bag and we're gonna keep a little bit of the sauce in the bag, okay? I know we have to cook it down. It has to come to boiling temperatures, but we're gonna keep some of this marinade as a reserve so that we can later on use it as a sauce to drizzle on top of the meat when we serve it for dinner, okay? So once we've got the venison meat out of the fridge, we're gonna let it come to room temperature for a few minutes because it won't shrivel up in the pan when it hits the heat. Okay, so we've just taken our beautiful marinated venison steak out of the fridge. It's been marinating in soy sauce and ginger and garlic and honey, Farmer's Daughter's honey. And we're going to do a quick sear on this meat, probably 2 to 3 minutes aside, and we're gonna take it off the stove and let it sit. Now, I like to add really yummy fats to this frying process. I'm not a big fan of oil when it comes to venison. I love to use salted butter. It browns the outside nicely and it's creamier and it makes a great base for the sauce that we're gonna make with the pan drippings, okay? So what we're gonna do is, this has already come to room temperature, which is what we wanted. I'm gonna take a generous amount of butter. I don't know, what does that look like, guys? Quarter cup, third cup. Did you know that I live in Butter Cottage? Anyway, we're gonna put this in the pan and I'm gonna put it on high heat. And we're gonna look for a bubbling butter. We wanna get a sear on our meat, okay? So what we wanna do is have a nice crust, and that sear is gonna keep all that juice in, and that juice includes honey. So you know that when you cut into that meat, you're gonna have a nice sweet soy flavor, which will elevate this very, very lean and often gamey meat. So we're trying to take a bit of that gaminess away so that everybody can enjoy it. Okay, so what we've got going on here in our pan is that delightful sound of bubbling butter. Who doesn't love that sound? And this is the point, once it starts to bubble like this, that you want to put your meat in, okay? You don't want it to get too brown because butter does burn quickly. So we're gonna take this delicious, oh, look, it's so tender now, it's falling apart. We're gonna throw this into the pan, try to get it all in one. Oh yes, the sound of cooking honey and butter together. Yum, yum, yum. Okay, so we're gonna reduce the heat just a little bit, and we're gonna let that go 3 minutes aside, maybe 4 minutes aside, because it's a big piece. We'll see. We wanna have a nice crust. We're gonna transfer it to a cutting board and we're gonna let it sit. And while it sits, it's gonna retain its juices. Okay, so now we're at the stage where we're gonna flip our venison steak over. You can see that the butter and the marinade. I wish you guys could smell this. All the butter and the honey and that delicious soy. So we're gonna flip it over now. It's been cooking for about 3 minutes on one side. Yeah, it's a pretty big chunk. Of course, obviously, if you have smaller cuts, it'll be a little bit easier. So we're just gonna flip it over. See all that delicious browning? And you know what happens when the meat browns like that? It leaves little bits behind in the pan, which we're gonna use to make a delicious sauce after. Okay, so we're gonna put this back on the flame here and sear the other side. Okay, so we've got our venison steak out of the pan. It's cooked 4 minutes on each side, approximately. It's got a great sear, and we're just gonna let that sit, okay? Because like we wanna keep the juices from flowing out, and letting it sit and just cool off a little bit. It will make sure that it retains its juice. So what we've got left in our pan is a delicious combination of butter, all of that reduced marinade, and we're going to add more to the pan and finish off a sauce, make a super simple sauce. So what we've got here is our reserved marinade from our Ziploc bag that we've had in the fridge for a couple of days, marinating the meat. This has to come to a boil. We wanna make sure that it's cooked properly. So we're gonna pour a little bit of that reserved marinade in, and it's going to reduce thanks to the honey, and will produce a delicious sauce. So we're gonna put that back on the stove for a few minutes. I use my trusty Pampered Chef little mixer here. Put that back on the stove and heat it up. Now another trick that I like to use for this particular sauce is, we all have this in our fridge, especially in Renfrew County, preserves. So what I've got here is a choke cherry jelly made locally. And you can use actually any kind of jam, any kind of preserve that you might have in your fridge that you want to get rid of, and something sweet and red usually. Choke cherry, crab apple, anything that you want. Now you don't have to do this. This is just a little extra that I like to add on top of extra honey. So we're gonna add in more honey to our pan, because hey, you can never have too much honey, right? So we're gonna add in more honey to our saucepan, and then we're gonna put in a little bit of this choke cherry jelly and make a delicious sauce for our venison. Okay, now that choke cherry jelly is going to dissolve in the pan. We're gonna bring it up here and I'll show you how easy that is to do. You can see how it's thickening up on its own. So we're gonna make sure that that choke cherry jelly dissolves, and then we're gonna put this back on. You can also add a splash of red wine to this if you want. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but the option is there if you want. Okay, so we're gonna put it back on the fire and make our sauce a little bit thicker. Okay, so this is my favorite part about cooking a venison steak like this. Again, super easy, super delicious. We've got this reduced marinade, we've got honey in here, we've got any kind of preserves that you might have in your fridge. In this case, I use choke cherry jelly. We're gonna pour that over the venison steak. I mean, look at how it thickened on its own. Delicious. And we're gonna let that sit on there and warm that steak back up. So good. And of course, you can add, you know, parsley or sprigs of rosemary or whatever you want. And sprinkle it with, geez, you can even put pistachios on top of that too. Look at that. Delicious, delicious, delicious. And that was easy peasy, venison with a honey and soy marinade and sauce. Okay, so another thing that I like to add, crispy onions, crispy fried onions. You can buy these pre-made. French's makes them, I believe. We like to make our own around here. Crispy fried onions on top of that venison steak. I would recommend serving this with mashed potatoes. That gravy will go really well with that. And honey glazed carrots, which we're gonna do next. So another great way to use honey is with a side dish, carrots, my favorite. Butter and honey glazed carrots with dried rosemary. You can use fresh rosemary for this when it's in season. It's obviously better, but I'm gonna use dry today for this particular recipe. So I'm gonna add the rosemary ahead of time. Our carrots have been cooked, cut on an angle. Again, everything goes better with butter. Couple of tablespoons of butter in the pan, super easy. We're gonna put that on our stove and bring it to a sizzle. Okay, so we've got our carrots cooking away here in our butter and rosemary, and we're just gonna add a wee drizzle of honey. Okay, if you're serving a sweet dish, easy on the honey with the carrots. If you're serving a savory dish, then by all means, the more honey, the better with carrots. They complement each other wonderfully, and the butter is a great vessel for caramelization. And there you have it. Super easy to make. We're gonna add in a little bit of salt and pepper after, and that's it. So next up, we're gonna take this beautiful butterflied rack of lamb, courtesy of Pinnacle Haven Farm on Garden of Eden Road, not far from us here at the Babbling Gourmet. This has been beautifully trimmed, as you can see. It's absolutely beautiful meat, grass-fed for 3 seasons. It's just top quality lamb, and we certainly appreciate Shanna donating this beautiful rack of lamb for this recipe. So this is actually a perfect serving for 2 people. Makes a great date night or Valentine's Day or special occasion dinner, you could say. And we're going to treat it very simply. It's going to be a super elegant finished product, but it's super, super easy to coat. So what we're going to do today is a honey and pistachio crusted lamb. It's going to go into the oven at 350. You want this to be rare to medium rare. You want it to be nice and pink in the middle. That's the best way to eat lamb. So it really only needs to cook for about 15 minutes, and then you let it sit. And then the fun starts with making a drizzle, another honey-based drizzle. So what we're gonna do is we're going to coat the outside of the lamb generously with honey. I'm using a spoon because, you know, it's very professional, but you can also use your fingers. And I like to get everywhere. So now that you've covered your lamb with delicious honey, what I like to use, and this isn't not always easy to find, especially in rural areas, but you can make your own. It's a Herbe de Provence salt. Ooh la la, comes from France. This particular one contains thyme, rosemary, bay leaves, and parsley. I also like to use the one with lavender. It's a little bit harder to find, but if you could actually make your own. Salt, add in a bunch of powdered herbs, parsley, bay leaf, rosemary, and thyme, and then put that on top of your honey coated lamb. So we're just gonna shake a little bit on there. Now, the pistachios that I'm using are already salted pistachios, roasted, salted, shelled pistachios that I put through a little bit of a food processor to get them nice. You want to keep it chunky because you want to have that textural component when you bite into the lamb. So we're going to sprinkle on some of this Herbe de Provence salt, back and front, sides. Don't miss any part of the lamb. I like it to be coated all over, okay? And once you've got that done, the fun begins. This is super easy and it looks so elegant. People think you've spent hours in the kitchen when in fact, it's really only been 5 minutes. Okay, so now you've got this beautiful lamb here. We're gonna press it in to the pistachios. Press it, press it, press it. And good news is that sticky honey is gonna be the perfect glue for this dish. Okay, so let's see how it looks. Oh, it's getting there. So you want to fill up any little blank spots you see, and if you need to put a little bit of honey down there as a glue, as an adherent, go right ahead, and then stick more of the nuts on there. All right, so we've got the front done. This is the part that you're going to see when you take it out of the oven, and that's going to be the pièce de résistance on the plate. Now push it into the sides, push it into the sides. Okay, so now your lamb is basically ready to go in a preheated oven. 350 degrees. I usually cook something this small, maybe 15 minutes, and then you let it sit for a while when you take it out of the oven to let the juices stay in. Because if you cut it too soon, all of that juice is going to run out, especially because you really want an internal temperature of about 130 to between 130 and 140. That'll make the lamb rare to medium rare, which is what we're looking for. Okay, so you have two options here. If you're advanced or you're brave enough, you can sear this lamb in a pan before you put it in the oven. And what that'll do is add a little bit of browning and crunch to the top of the lamb, and then you'll finish it off in the oven. So what we've done is we have baked a lamb, and this is how it looks. So as you can see, this is the finished product here. Beautifully done. It's been crusted. Not so much browning on the pistachios, but they're crunchy, and that'll give a beautiful not only appearance, but a great crunch when your guests bite into it. So what we're going to do with this lamb, we're going to take it out of its little vessel here, and we do not want to get rid of these bits. Okay, so it looks a little bit not so good in the pan right now, but we're going to keep all this because this is going to make a great sauce for your lamb and a dressing for the couscous, the mint and honey couscous that we're going to serve this lamb with. Again, another super easy side dish. Okay, so we've got this beautiful lamb here, and it's very, very easy to cut. I'm going to slice it like this, and we'll come back and show you how nice this looks on the platter. Okay, so when you're cutting your lamb, it's actually easier to cut upside down. Might interfere with how nice it looks on the top, but that gives you an opportunity to get right in between the bones here, okay? So you're just gonna very gently press down, and then you're gonna have beautiful servings that you can fan out on a plate. So what we've got here is I made some couscous to go along with this meal. Couscous is super easy to make. It's Middle Eastern wheat. You soak it in water, it absorbs in about 5 minutes. And what we've done is we've added some cranberries and chopped pistachios to this. Lamb really goes well with, as you know, mint, rosemary, those are traditional flavors, but it also goes super, super well with sweet jams, jellies, honey, of course. So what we've got here is we've got a prepared platter with our couscous. We've got some cranberries on there, sweet cranberries, of course. They can be dried, they can be fresh. You could make them yourself. I also adds a nice punch of color, which I like on any dish. So we're gonna just move those around a little bit for service. Now, what we can do with what's left in the pan, we've got some delicious lamb fat in there. We've got honey, we've got pistachios. Now, you can use a lamb broth for this. We're gonna pour a little bit into the pan, and of course we can put this back onto the stove, but it's just as easy to whisk on the spot to show you how easy this is to do. So we're just gonna kind of mix all that together, and we're gonna drizzle it right from the pan onto our couscous, half of it onto the couscous, okay? There we go. And then we're gonna lay the lamb on top. Now look at how nice that turned out. So this is a medium cooked lamb, which would probably be more in line with what people would like around here. And then we take some of the bits of the pistachios that fell off when you were cutting it for decor purposes. And then we can take the rest of the drizzle that we've got here in our baking pan and pour that over the lamb. Now, doesn't that look delicious? And if you're serving this to guests, you want to add a little bit of je ne sais quoi to your plate. Parsley from your garden is always a nice addition, or fresh mint leaves or something to that effect. Okay, so what we've got here is a super, super easy, delicious Canadian lamb, locally grown in Renfrew, locally raised in Renfrew, grass-fed from Pinnacle Haven Farms. This is a pistachio and honey-crusted lamb, butterflied lamb with mint and honey couscous, and it's ready to go. So in total, between prep, cooking, and the finished product, including the couscous, you're looking at about half an hour. That's it. So you can pump out a meal that looks this delicious, this fresh and beautiful in about half an hour. Okay, 40 minutes if you need a little bit of extra help, but half an hour from farm to table. And using products that you can find locally, which is super important. Shopping locally is something that that's pretty important to me. And I'm thrilled that we've got both our meat and our honey produced by local producers. and other ingredients you can purchase at your local grocery store as well. So now that we've got this delicious lamb dinner made, a huge shout out to our friends at Pinnacle Haven Farm in Renfrew for their delicious 3-season grass-fed lamb. And of course, my favorite honey that I use in all of my cooking, Farmer's Daughter honey from Renfrew as well, just around the corner from us. And you know what goes great with lamb and venison? Cabernet Sauvignon. I prefer an Australian myself, but you can also support the local Ontario wineries and purchase a Cabernet Sauvignon from Niagara as well, or Picton. Thank you so much for joining me today. I would love to see how you guys made out making these things. You can email me your stories at any time to andy@thebablinggourmet.com or tag us on Facebook at The Babbling Gourmet. Show me some pictures, give me some insight into how it worked out for you guys, and if you have any questions or comments, you can always send them to me. If you're a local producer, I'm always up for a challenge. Feel free to send me any ingredients or feedback or questions or ideas, and I'll see what I can do with your ingredients.